It is time to decide who will be playing in Super Bowl 56 with this Sunday's conference championships. We got the Chiefs versus the Bengals, the Rams versus the 49ers to set things up for 2 weeks from now when Super Bowl 56 will be decided. We're going to break down both those games to get you set, which should be another fantastic weekend of football. This is the FanDuel Live Q&A. That's right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter channels. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberfire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gdula and Jessica Gridiron. Jessica, of course, is on Twitter at Gridiron and Wine. Jessica, we are on to the conference championships. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited. We're coming down to the end. You know, it's last week was insane. So if we could, let's see if they can top it this weekend.
Yeah, when I was watching that Bills Chiefs game, I was like screaming at my television the entire time, and I clapped. Like, I'm not a person who claps during games, so I find that super annoying. But my hands hurt from clapping after because I couldn't like stop myself. Jessica, are you a clapper during games, or is that not your style?
No, I mean, I will do the clapping, yes. But, you know, I'm like you. I try to keep myself, you know, cool. But when I'm more of a yeller, I guess, that's kind of more my thing.
See, Joy, our producer, our video producer, Joy Affleck, also screamed at her TV. So, like, everyone is on board. We're all changing our attitudes, except I'm guessing Brandon Gdula did not. He is on Twitter at Gdula13, of course, the managing editor of numberfire.com. Brandon, I'm assuming you sat there stoically, updating spreadsheets and enjoying the action with a light smile on your face.
You know what's ironic here? My wife and I, we just got a new TV, so I'm super excited to watch the Super Bowl on the big screen. And we actually thought, hey, we'll invite some friends over, host something. And I was like, you know what? I get pretty into playoff football, which is really strange for me. And I kind of want to be able to say whatever. I'm going to be sweating props anytime someone drops a pass or gets a fingertip. That goes the other way. I'm going to have some comments. So, you know me. This is very unlike me, but there's something about playoff football that every single play I'm in on. So.
Yeah, when people are around, I swear a lot, and I try not to. I try really hard not to in those situations because, like, hey, we're hosting people, and I don't want to, like, scare them off by shouting obscenities. But, you know, sometimes you can't help yourself. So hopefully we can shout good obscenities this weekend by breaking down these games. We'll go through our favorite props for both the games coming up this weekend. We'll have our contest once again. We have 3 units apiece to allocate across the 2 games. It can be spreads, totals. You can split up units however you want. If you want to play along, feel free to put your units in chat. So if you're watching over there in chat, feel free to put whatever you put your 3 units on across the 2 games over in chat. We'll take those chats and questions via Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. We actually start things off with a question from Grim Fan, because Grim Fan is asking, what do you believe the Bengals have to do to beat the Chiefs on Sunday? So let's start things off here with that Bengals versus Chiefs game. The Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites, and the total is 54.5. And Brandon, I want to toss this to you. I tell you right now, the Bengals win on Sunday. What do you tell me they did in order to allow that to happen?
I've protected Joe Burrow a little bit. I think that's what it's going to. I think that's what it's going to come down to for the Bengals to keep this one close. Is they're going to need to score points to keep up with the Chiefs, and you can't get sacked 9 times and score 35 points, whatever it's going to take to beat the Chiefs. So, I mean, I really think it comes down to something as simple as is Joe Burrow going to be on his back, or is he going to be able to make some throws, connect with Jamar Chase, C.J. Uzomah, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, move the ball. So I think that's what it comes down to for me.
Okay, so Brandon says protect Joe Burrow, and I think that's an evergreen thing. You know, just like in life, not even like during games, just like protect Joe Burrow at all costs. Jessica, what about you? I tell you the Bengals win. How did they do so?
By being able to keep up with Mahomes and company. I mean, that's their biggest thing. The good thing is Joe Burrow, he has the arm and he has the weapons to be able to do it. It's just that offensive line, if they're able to protect him. And Kansas City's defense isn't really nothing special either. I mean, look what the Bills did. They still, Josh Allen still shredded that defense. So it's quite possible for the Bengals to stay up. That's why I actually even kind of I would lean the over in this game too, just because I feel like this is the championship round. If they're all in it and they want to to try and win this game. I mean, we know Mahomes, they're going to easily put up 30 points. I mean,
when you look at the Bills game, you could even look at the first match between these two teams where the Bengals offense lit it up. Jamar Chase 266, I believe, in that game, just an absurd showing. And we got DJ saying the Bengals win 37-31 overtime. That's an over. And of course, Bengals money line, Bengals cover. And DJ, I like the covering side of that. That's actually one of my units for this weekend is the Bengals plus 7.5. When I ran my numbers back on Monday, they said this is a 5.5 point game in favor of the Chiefs. And if it's a 5.5 point game sitting on 7, I'm not willing to bet that quite yet because I have faith in Patrick Mahomes. I do not like putting myself in a position where I have to root against Patrick Mahomes because that's scary and not fun. But once it got to 7.5, I was okay with it. So to me, that's my first bet of this weekend is the Bengals plus 7.5. I think I'm getting 2 points of value, getting across 7, getting that key number there. I think the Bengals offense can move the football here and can play pretty well. So that's my first read on this game is the Bengals plus 7.5. Jessica, what about for you? What are your initial thoughts on this game from a betting perspective?
Yeah, so what I initially mentioned, how I like the over in this game. It's not a bet that I have for this for our little game we're playing. I actually went with a teaser. I did a 6.5 point teaser, and okay. I took the Chiefs down to -1 and the 49ers to +10. So Perfect. I'm going to do 1.5 units, on that teaser for our game.
I like it. Okay.
Because I'm that confident in it. As much as I'm really liking the Bengals and everything, I just, after the performance last week and how great, just all you need is give Mahomes 13 seconds and he can make things magic happen. So, and then it's going to come down to the defense. Kansas City's defense is decent, but it's not elite. And Cincinnati's, the Bengals defense is really nothing special at the end of the day. They're good, but they're not great. So it's possible for Kansas City to put up a lot of points. And a prop bet I like too, that I'm going to do in the game is I'm going to do an anytime touchdown for Tyler Boyd at plus 250.
Oh, I talked about that this morning on Sports Grid. I like it.
Yeah, so he's caught a touchdown in 4 of the last 5 games. Plus, I feel like, he's going to be that buffer where they're going to be, on everyone else. But last matchup, when they did play each other, like you mentioned earlier, Jamar Chase, he caught 3 touchdowns against KC. So if people are feeling a little, feeling a little risky and you feel like it's a chance, he has he has 2 touchdown score for Chase at plus 500. And this really could be the match that it could happen again. Or, I could get that Boyd touchdown because they're going to be all over Chase this time.
Yeah, the one I liked for multi-touchdowns was Joe Mixon. He was plus 440 this morning. And I think that one's kind of interesting too. I think that's like you put down a little bit on that one. That's not a full unit bet, but I think that Mixon at 2+ touchdowns at plus 440, pretty interesting. Now, DJ is asking for an explanation of the game we're playing again. It's a game we played the past 2 weeks here on the show, where each of us has 3 units we can allocate across the entire weekend, and we can decide how we want to bet them. And then whoever has the most units by the end of the weekend wins. Brandon won in the wild card round. I won last week, which means Jessica is guaranteed to win this week, and we are all doomed. So congratulations in advance on that one. But basically, we're just letting you know our 3 favorite bets of this weekend and our level of confidence. So Jessica has that 2-team teaser, the Chiefs -1, 49ers plus 10, 1.5 units on that. That means that is her favorite bet of this weekend. And Jessica, which leg of that do you feel better about? Are you feeling better about the Chiefs side or the 49ers side between the two?
Honestly, I feel really good about both. I'm on the Niners as well once we get once we start talking about that game. But I feel like Kansas City going down to -1. I mean, that should just be like a shoe-in. But yeah,
I like it. All right, let's go to Brandon here. Brandon, your thoughts on Chiefs versus Bengals? We were talking before about how you might have interest in the spread. Are you going to do it or no?
Yeah,
let's do it.
It's not that common that you and I align on things. Usually we like to bicker and go back and forth.
We agree on running backs. We disagree on everything else.
Yeah, basically. I think that's what it comes down to usually. But I also like the Bengals plus 7.5 for one of my units for this week. I think getting that extra half point's pretty huge in a game that might not have any field goals. It might just have a lot of touchdowns here. But my model, as I mentioned in each of these weeks in the playoffs, has been pretty low on the Bengals, simply due to the fact that they overperform they overperform in points per play compared to their expected points per play, but sometimes outliers are outliers for a reason. And I think it's just this speaks to the explosiveness of this offense and also the sort of the volatility of, taking heavy sacks that kind of ruins your expected points. So even with that, my model, I think you said you have it at 5.5. I have it at 6, which is enough for me to take the Bengals plus 7.5 as one of my units for this week. I also have a second unit in this game, and that's going to be on Patrick Mahomes for his over 289.5 yards. That's minus 114. I have Mahomes projected for 295 yards, which is enough to see slight value on that over. In this first matchup, both sides were really pass heavy. Mahomes has gone for 404 and 378 in his 2 playoff games, which yes includes that overtime game, some yardage that he churned out on the final 13 seconds in an overtime, of course, but also includes a romp over the Steelers. So I think that they're going to lean on him. Leaning on Patrick Mahomes feels like the safest thing you can do. So I think he'll get to at least 290 this week.
Yeah, I was looking back at his game log, and for whatever reason, I just did not remember he had 400 yards in that Steelers game. They didn't have to
turn it off
at
halftime.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I could have. I kept watching because I needed to sweat some DFS stuff, but I can't believe he did that, and they just didn't throw the entire game, but pretty wild there. So I like that one for sure. So Brandon's on the Bengals plus 7.5, Mahomes over 289.5. Bethany has said, nice hat, Brandon. And I'm wondering if she might revoke that, given that you are going against the Chiefs. I believe her dog's Mr. Travis Kelce. So I think you might have lost Bethany. And I hope that you are okay with the consequences of your actions. That's what this is about, Brandon. Consequences for your actions.
Hey, there's a reason I didn't bet the Bengals money line. It's I'm taking the 7.5 here.
Fair enough. Anything else you like in this game, Brandon, on this side?
So honestly, a lot of the player props for me don't project out that well this weekend, but a few that do actually all come from the Bengals side here. I have T. Higgins under 5.5 catches is one that I'd be eyeing. I love T, but my projections have him at 5.1 catches this week. He had 7 last week, but prior to that, 1, 3, 12, 2, and 5. And we've seen his playoff target share drop to 19%, which is still strong, but we've seen CJ Uzomah, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd still getting work. I think there's a path to a ceiling for him, but I don't think it's going to come from heavy volume. I think it's going to come from splash plays. And so I actually like Tyler Boyd over 39.5 receiving yards as well. He averaged 43.7 yards per game in weeks with Higgins and Chase this year since week 5. And he's been running a route a lot for this team, 90% route rate in the playoffs. And I like him to pick up some extra volume as a part of this game plan to try to move the ball. So I think he gets the 40 here this week.
Yeah, I think that Boyd in general a bit underrated, and that's reflected in Jessica's bet, the anytime touchdown bet, and Brandon here with the yardage bet. And apparently you're okay, Brandon. You're in the clear with Bethany, despite the fact you are betting against her dog's team in a way. Okay, what about you, Jessica? Any other props you like in this game? DJ's asking about CJ Uzomah props. I don't have any of those personally. You don't have to mention if you don't want, but anything else stand out to you?
No, it was a little hard. There's a lot of when I was looking at them earlier, there's the numbers are kind of a little too high for me as far as receiving yards. As I was looking at even rushing, even though this game it should be expected for everyone to go off. It was one of those things. That's why I just stuck with the anytime touchdown. I
had the same sentiment that props were pretty high. And that's going to come back in our next discussion where we're talking about the Rams 49ers game. There is some stuff there that I think is pretty relevant. Now, you asked about Evan McPherson as well. If we like any Evan McPherson props, I've never bet a kicker prop in my entire life. So Evan McPherson's great. I will not be the one betting him for this week.
I will say that CJ Uzomah should probably go over 3.5 catches, but the juice there is minus 158, so there's not a whole lot of value. So I don't want to say that unless you want to, combine that if you're doing a same game parlay, something like that.
Now, let's move on here to the 49ers and the Rams. Right now, we have the Rams as 3.5-point favorites. Total is 45.5. And Adam thinks that Stafford's going to go off, whereas Bethany thinks that she likes the under on Stafford's passing yards. And I think unders are in play here. But first of all, Brandon, I want to get your overall thoughts on this game. This Rams versus 49ers. Anything standing out to you in the traditional markets? Just overall thoughts on how you expect this game to play out.
So my numbers, it depends on the sample you want to use for the 49ers. If I use like a larger sample with, Elijah Mitchell, Jimmy Garoppolo starting, Deebo Samuel kind of playing his current role, they look a little bit better than the past 3 weeks would indicate. And so it's something I was talking to you about, Jim, yesterday on the heat check when we were looking at this from a DFS standpoint. Is I'm not really looking at this 49ers team from a season-long standpoint. It's really these past 3 weeks with Jimmy just not being 100%. And if I drop down their efficiency to what they've been, and this is an expected points play thing per play thing too. It's not just actual results. And it adjusts for opponents. It's still not particularly good. So unfortunately, that's not enough to see any value. I would lean the under, but I don't. I'd probably lean. I don't want to lean the under because I think the Rams are going to put up points, and my instinct is that the Rams win this one. But nothing in my data really has a strong take either way. So as far as overall game, bets, spread, money line, over under, I don't really see anything myself.
Yeah, I think that I'm also staying away from these. I think that if I were to bet one of the traditional markets, I would go towards the over for the game at 45.5, but I don't feel good enough about that to go there. What about you, Jessica? What are your thoughts on Rams versus 49ers part 3?
Yes, I know, right? 45.5. That's something I was looking at too. I like the over. I'm not making a play on it, but that's definitely what I'd lean. But the play I like in this game is taking the Niners at plus 3.5.
Ooh, okay.
And for our game, I'll do a half unit on it.
Perfect.
You got to just look at the Niners. They're 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games. They're also 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games against the Rams. Everyone's the talk of the town how Kyle Shanahan owns McVay. And it's just, here we go. They beat him twice this season, and here they are going for round 3. How are they going to make it happen? But just a lot of things that you already alluded to, Brandon, about talking about, the players and just injuries and concerns and that factor. But the Niners, just overall, when you look at them, they're number 7th in the NFL in total offense. They're averaging more than 375 yards per game. They are also averaging 127.4 rushing yards per game, which is top 10. And then again, it just comes down to defense. Defensively, they're ranked the 2nd best at stopping the run, according to DVOA, and ranked 6th at stopping the pass in DVOA. So as hot as those Rams have been during the playoffs, it's true. You just have to go back to, this is a rival matchup. Shanahan, the guru that he is, he knows this team. He's going to be ready for it, even though it's round 3 and the Rams should be able to come in and be able to win. But McVay sometimes just gets a little too ahead of himself, and he tries to get these tricky plays. And I mean, just look, even what happened last week. He was up, and then the Bucs came back, and Brady almost, squashed it. So it's just one of those things. I think it's going to be a lot closer than some people might think. Are they going to win? I mean, I don't know, but I think they'll cover.
Yeah, you get across
the Niners
3.
To covers. Yeah,
you get across 3. I think that's a big help there for sure. And I saw a tweet this week. I don't recall who did it, so apologies. But they said inspirational that Sean McVay gets to face his father in the NFC Championship game because Kyle Shanahan has been his daddy over the past couple of years. I thought that was pretty good too. Okay, so Adam is asking about the Rams backfield. What do you think about Cam Akers splits this week with Sony Michel? And I actually think that's an interesting angle for this week because we saw Cam Akers lose 2 fumbles last week in high leverage situations. I think that may not lead to his being benched. However, it increases the uncertainty around his role. And now Darrell Henderson's back as well. There are several factors here that add to some uncertainty around what kind of work Cam Akers will get. So you go over to the rushing yardage or the rushing props, and we see that Cam Akers, his rush attempts is at 17.5 with minus 136 in the under. I want that under for Cam Akers. I think that's a number he could go under realistically, even if you were to keep his typical role. Just because, like you said, Jessica, it's tough to run on the 49ers. They could be a bit more pass heavy than they were during the regular season against them. That could lead to an under here, but also Sony may take some carries. We may see Henderson take some carries. I think there's enough uncertainty there where I do like Akers under 17.5 rushes. So I'll take that for 1 unit at minus 136. The other one I like is also another under. So I'm going boring for this game. But like we talked about, I think that the way these numbers broke out kind of lend themselves towards that. And the other one I like here is George Kittle, under 4.5 at minus 102. Because if you look at the playoffs, Kittle's at 4.5 targets per game. If you look at him in the games since he returned from injury that he has played with Deebo Samuel and Eli Mitchell both being healthy, Kittle's at 5 targets per game in that span, and that's pretty easily an under at 4.5. He did have a good game last week, played pretty well. Brandon, I think that was one of your bets, was Kittle under 4.5, and he had 4. So he did hit the under there too. I think he goes under once again at 4.5. He could have a great game and still have just 4 catches. I think that's what's reassuring to me. As I'm not betting against Kittle, I'm betting against volume here. I think that's kind of the angle I want to place. My final 2 units for this game are Kittle under 4.5 receptions at -102, Akers under 17.5 at -136. And that's kind of the main thing I see in this game is unders on the player props, potentially a game over, but not enough where I'm super enthusiastic about it. What about for you, Brandon? What do you see in this game?
Yeah, kind of along the same lines. When these two teams have played earlier this season, the 49ers just have been extremely run heavy, which is what they want to do to begin with, to sort of protect Jimmy Garoppolo. Now that he's hurt, they're doing the same thing. And I think actually in my adjusted numbers in terms of pass rate over expectation, they basically ranked like bottom 10 across all teams in all games in terms of pass rate over expectation playing against the Rams this year. And so that leads me to one of the bets I actually made in the wild card round, but Elijah Mitchell and over on his rushing prop. It's 17.5 this week. It's a -102. He's averaged 21.7 carries per game in 3 games since returning from injury. Had 17 last week, but had at least 21 in 7 straight prior to that. Again, the 49ers just want to run the ball. They did that against the Rams this season. The Rams also are faster paced than the Packers. So there should be more plays here for the 49ers. And I think that there's really no way that Elijah Mitchell comes away from this just sort of as an afterthought, especially with Deebo Samuel. Maybe, I know he's practicing, but maybe just not 100%. Maybe they give a few extra carries to Elijah Mitchell. So that's my final unit for this week. And another under I like is Jimmy Garoppolo under 1.5 passing touchdowns. That was -140 last I looked, but I think there's still value on that if you want it, according to my projections. San Francisco has a 46% pass rate in the red zone over their game since he returned, and not many red zone plays. He's going to need some George Kittle or like Deebo Samuel yards after the catch, I think, to throw multiple touchdowns. So I know -140 is kind of steep, but again, there's still some value on that.
Yeah, I think that one is enticing as well, just because of the way they operate things. And we've seen a lot of Deebo, a lot of Eli Mitchell in towards the goal line. Now, we got a question here from Adam asking about Eli Mitchell, about his health. He sat out practice Wednesday, was limited Thursday. That's the same practice schedule he's had since he came back from his knee injury. So to me, I'm not too worried about that. I think he's pretty healthy right now. So I think that Brandon being in on his rushing attempt prop does make a lot of sense. Now, Grim Fan is asking about Johann Jennings, Eli Mitchell props. Mentioned the Eli Mitchell rushing yardage prop. I think there was also talk about Jennings earlier on, because in their first match, this is from Kyle, Johann Jennings had a pair of touchdowns and I think 94 yards. Honestly, a really impressive game. And Jennings is a guy who has earned more playing time as the year has gone along because he's played really well. So I think that he's at least worth looking into. So let's pull up the props over here on old Johann Jennings. He is his yardage prop is at 23.5. That is low, and I think that's low enough for you at least give it some thought. I will say, though, at least in the yardage prop, my favorite one is Ayuk over 49.5. He's at 68 yards per game in the games he has played with Kittle, Deebo, and Mitchell since we saw Kittle return from his injury. He goose-egged last week. It was not pretty. He had 1 catch. It was overturned he fumbled it. Then was overturned by replay. That ain't great. But in the first game, or the Week 18 matchup versus the Rams, 107 yards for Ayuk in that game. Good number of targets. Still involved in this offense. So I do like Ayuk over 49.5. Not on my official bets here for the game, but I do think that's, if I were looking at a receiving yardage prop, either for Kyle or for Grim Fan, I think that's where I'd go versus Johann Jennings, despite the fact Jennings is legit. And I think it's earned the playing time he has gotten. What about you, Jessica? Anything else you're seeing in this game?
Yeah, actually, one of my last half unit for our game is receiving props. I like Tyler Higbee over 39.5 at -114. Yeah, he's hit that over in the last 6 games straight, and I feel like he's that perfect buffer because, they're all over his other weapons, everyone, Cup, Odell, Jefferson, like he's like that guy that can make it happen. So I feel like that's a good one. That'll be a good one to play.
Yeah, and we were talking about Jennings scoring twice versus the Rams. Higbee scored twice versus the 49ers in their most recent matchup. So 39.5. He's had a really good role. I think underrated role recently. So I think that Higbee interesting there. Brandon, what about you? I cut you off. So what's standing out to you?
Oh, no, I was just going to say I have Jennings like 80% likely to go over 23.5 yards. So I think that's a good, good prop there.
Okay, so Grim Fan and Kyle, if you want access to Johann Jennings, check out the yardage prop at 23.5. Adam also likes Van Jefferson. I will know he's banged up. He is questionable with a knee injury. He rested on Wednesday. It sounds like it was mostly due to rest, but I keep an eye on that. I'm not sure where his health is right now. So I'd be a little bit wary on that one just because things, not at full health. Bethany is asking about some sleeper DFS plays. She was talking about some Bengals or 49ers other than the main guys. I think it depends on if you count Boyd and Ayuk as being the quote-unquote main guys, because both those guys on FanDuel do carry lower salaries. Boyd at $5,800, Ayuk down to $56,000. I think if we count those two, I am in on both. I started off being very pro Ayuk. I'm slowly coming over towards
welcome.
Boyd. I know. But like that's where I'm at. Brandon, anybody else for you other than the quote unquote main guys here for the Bengals or 49ers?
I mean, I would think CJ Uzomah wouldn't count as a main guy because the main guys would be Mixon, Chase, and Higgins. I think CJ Uzomah makes a lot of sense as a pivot, regardless of what slate you're looking at, just because tight end is good, but CJ Uzomah's role has been good. He's actually second in target share in the playoffs for the Bengals. So I think that he's a good play here, and I can't imagine he would count as a primary Bengal.
Look at you just throwing shade at T. Higgins by talking about how CJ Uzomah's second in target share. Just rude. Like we don't need to throw unnecessary shade at T.
Hey man, I said he was a primary play. I thought it was obvious.
Bethany wants us to go deeper than those guys. I don't wanna. I don't feel the need to personally. Sorry. I'm not going to talk about Samaje P.
How you check
game. Yeah. The juice. There we go. Okay. That's all we have for this. So Jessica, before we wrap up, any final thoughts for you, not just on this game, but for the entire weekend? Anything you're watching for on Sunday? Anything else?
Let's see. No, pretty much just the other one that I liked was the over in the Kansas City Chiefs Bengals game. That was the only other play I really like. Going into this weekend.
I think that's a pretty good one. What about you, Brandon? Any final thoughts for you?
To use Bethany's comment or question as a jumping off point, if you're playing DFS, you will be looking at some underrated plays, some names that maybe aren't at the forefront of your mind, but you really even on a 2-game slate, you don't have to be playing like
Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Captain America.
Yeah. I was trying to think of all the Chiefs backup tight ends, but
Noah Gray? Don't disrespect Noah Gray.
You don't need
He's
to play
a backup in name only.
You don't need to play Noah Gray.
What? I'll play Noah Gray. Just out of protest for you.
You can play Noah Gray. I won't. We'll do a head-to-head, see how that goes.
Noah Gray's better than Blake Bell. The Belldozer there. There's our hot take for the show. J-Rod also asked for the teaser. It was Chiefs -1, 49ers +10 was the teaser that Jess got on those two games. That is all that we have here for today. Make sure you check out Jessica on Twitter at Gridiron and Wine. Check out Brandon on Twitter at Gdula13. I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. This is our final preview like this. We're going to have a lot more good stuff coming up for you before Super Bowl 56, and always Tom Vecchia with you on Wednesdays to talk NBA DFS. So if you like what you hear, make sure you are subscribed on the FanDuel Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter page to get notifications as we go live throughout each week. Big thank you to Joy Affleck, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Joy, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. And good luck with your bets. Good luck with your DFS lineups. Enjoy the football. We'll talk to you once again to get you set for Super Bowl 56. This has been the FanDuel Live Q&A.